Welcome everybody to Tutor Tuesday. Let's get started then. So today I have some digital SAT practice problems. Math, reading, whatever. These are all mostly like pretty hard difficulty. So if you can solve these, you're in real good shape for the SAT. I'll be checking chat every once in a while to see what you guys, if you have any questions to submit or anything like that. So we're going to start with some reading questions. I pasted in chat. 7th grade, yeah, whatever, whoever. Let me see. We got some questions in a chat here. Kind of looks like calculus. Maybe I'll come back to it. Or maybe you could send it towards the end of the session because we're going to focus on the SAT stuff for now. So this first one is a reading question. It's asking like what choice most logically completes the text. Okay, so we're going to have to figure out what the text is talking about. It says it's talking about some kind of, I don't know who this is. Laura Mulvey has theorized that in narrative film, shots issuing from a protagonist's point of view compel viewers to identify with the character. That looks like a claim to me, honestly. Shots issuing from a protagonist's point of view compel viewers to identify with the character. Right? That's like a central claim that we're making. So, such identification is heightened by invisible editing, or editing so inconspicuous that it renders cuts between the shots almost unnoticeable. Conversely, Mulvey proposes that conspicuous editing or absence of point of view shots would induce a more critical stance towards a protagonist. Okay. Consider, for example, the attic scene in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, a conspicuously edited scene, a sequence of tens of shots, few of which correspond to the protagonist's point of view. Right? Conspicuous editing. It's conspicuously edited. According to Mulvey's logic, this scene should affect viewers by blank. So it should really make them take a more critical stance towards a protagonist, right? Because that's what we saw earlier in the passage. It wouldn't really deal with diverting their attention away from the stylistic or from the film's content. It wouldn't really compel them to identify with the film's director. The director was not even mentioned in this paragraph. Obscuring their awareness of high degree of artifice involved. That doesn't make sense either. And so we're left with B, lessening their identification with the protagonist, if not alienating them from the character. Because that we see conspicuous editing would induce a more critical stance to a protagonist. And this example right here is a conspicuously edited sequence of tens of shots. Not C. Yeah, it's gonna be B. I mean, C makes sense about like to identify not with the protagonist, but it doesn't mention anything about the film's director, so it doesn't really make sense to put C. That's an inference that we can't really make with the information in the passage. Let's take a look at the next one. This is another one that a lot of people were confused on in a Discord. It says, the field of geological oceanography owes much to American blank Marie Tharp, a pioneering oceanographer or oceanographic cartographer whose detailed topographical maps of the ocean floor and its multiple rift valleys helped garner acceptance for the theories of plate tectonics and continental drift. Okay, so conventions of standard English. We can just try some answer choices here. The field of geological oceanography owes much to American geologist, Marie Tharp, If I put commas on both sides here, then that wouldn't really work, because that would be saying that this is a non-essential clause, non-essential information. And if I try to take that out, owes much to American geologist, a pioneering oceanographer, that doesn't really make sense. We need that name. It's actually an essential clause. So only non-essential clauses can be set off by commas on both sides. That leads me to think B is the best answer. We don't really want any punctuation between her title and her name. American geologist Marie Tharp. C also doesn't work. The semicolon acts as a full stop, and it doesn't make sense to put a period there. And D, that just doesn't really make sense either. Putting the colon there kind of unnecessarily sets apart the flow of the sentence. Really, we want a colon when we're using something, when we're trying to like emphasize something, but we're just explaining further about who this person is. Okay, let's go to the next one. In assessing the films of Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, blank have missed his equally deep engagement with Japanese artistic traditions, such as no theater. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Okay, so there's a lot of different answer choices here, but what I notice is that the subject was not mentioned in this first dependent clause. The subject was not mentioned in the first dependent clause. So we probably want to mention the subject right away, and that's why I'm going to think A is the best choice. Many critics have focused on his use of Western literary sources. In assessing the films, many critics have focused. Like, B would wrongly attribute Kurosawa to assessing the films. Like, they could have just said he assessed his own films. There are many critics. Well, that's just not necessary. We could have just said many critics have focused. We don't have to say there are many critics who have focused. And then the but they. It's just not necessary to restate. First, we're setting off the subject way later in the sentence, and when we're adding the word they, but we could have just kept this all in one sentence with answer choice A. And D, again, we want the subject to come first. It's not the focus that was assessing the films. It's the many critics who are assessing his films. So we want the subject to immediately follow. Let me label that right there. Nice. Yeah, sometimes the answers are just ones that sound the best, but there's definitely some English rules that go into it. All right, now we got a big question here. Let's take a look. It's asking for data from a table that supports the team's conclusion. Well, we're going to have to figure out what the team's conclusion even is. That's probably going to be in the last sentence, which states that by comparing the relative concentrations of types of molecules known as nucleobases in the Murchison meteorite with those in the soil, the team concluded there is evidence that the nucleobases in the meteorite formed in space and are not the result of contamination on Earth. Okay, so they were doing some kind of comparison. That's the claim. That the claim is that the nucleobases in the meteorite were actually formed in space. Let's see. If something showed up in the meteorite that did not show up in the soil sample, that would make sense that those actually formed in space. These ones formed up in space. So looking at the answer choices, isoguanine and purine were detected in the meteorite samples, but not the soil sample. That makes sense. right? That this was formed. This was formed in space. It was not formed on the ground. These were both found in both samples. These were found in both samples, and this is just not true. D. Well, yeah, this one's going to be answer choice A. Alright, I want to move on to some math questions now. Here's a tricky one that was in a Discord a couple of days ago. This one tells us dataset A contains 10 positive integers less than 60. The list shown gives 9 of the integers from dataset A. The mean of these 9 integers is 42. If the mean of a dataset A is an integer that is greater than 42, what is the value of the largest integer from dataset A? Any thoughts here? I think a lot of people actually put 59 because it's the largest integer less than 60. But this is not correct. Because the mean, when you add 59, is actually not going to be an integer. We want the mean to be an integer. And so when I take the mean of these numbers here, (46 plus 40) divide by 9. The mean here is definitely 42. Now, what we're doing is we're saying let's add another number. So maybe I can copy paste this. And what we're doing is adding a 10th number. So now it's divide by 10. And now the mean is actually greater than 42. This has to be an integer that's greater than 42. Well, if you look at the structure of this, if I want the mean to remain an integer, I can't just add 59 because now we're dividing by 10, right? But if let me think about how to simplify this a little bit. One thing you could do is kind of just guess and check. I mean, you could, like, strategy 1 would be just like guess and check all the numbers starting at 59 and going down. That's really not that bad with the Desmos that you get on a digital SAT. But a faster way is to recognize that before the mean was 42. If we add one more element, we're going to be dividing by 10. And thus, the element that we add should be something like the mean plus 10. So let me rephrase this. Before we had the sum divided by 9 equals the mean. Now we have the sum plus the mean plus 10 dividing by 10. And that's going to be the new mean. If we add 52 into here, it is actually perfect because it gives us an integer solution. You'll basically see the sum of all these numbers. If we divide by 9, that gives us 42. Or like the sum by 9 equals 42. If we plug in 52, this works because we're adding we're increasing the previous mean by 10, and we're adding that as one of the elements. So now we're dividing by 10 elements. This element doesn't really change the mean. This changes the sum by up by 10, and then now that we're dividing by the full 10 elements, the total mean will change by 1 unit. So the answer for this one should be 52. You can definitely guess and check and verify this. Yeah, you get Desmos on that digital SAT. Hello. Hey, Oliver. Yeah, old total was divisible by 9. New total has to be divisible by 10. Yes. All right. Next question. For what value of x is the given expression equal to 70n to the 30x where n is greater than 1? I know this one we had in our Discord a couple of days ago as well. But really what I want to do here is just simplify it so that it matches with this, right? That's all we need to do if it says it's equivalent. So 70n to the fifth root. The fifth root of that is the same thing as taking it to the 1/5 power. And we take 70n. The sixth root is, and the square is the same thing as to the power of 2/6. This is equal to 30x. Again, when I have two of the same bases being multiplied, I can just add the exponents. So that becomes 70n to the power of 1/5 plus 1/3. Notice I simplify this into 1/3. 1/5 plus 1/3. If we get similar bases, that's the same thing as 3/15 plus 5/15. And that becomes 70n to the 8/15 power is equal to 70n to the 30x. Of course, we just want to find the value of x, right? So we can just focus on the 8/15 in the exponent and the 30x in the exponent because we have the same base. If we divide by 30, we get x is equal to 8 over 450, which is even simplifiable to x is equal to 4 over 225. And that's probably what I would grid in. You can convert it to a decimal if you want, but it's easiest to keep it like this. Nice. Sure, yeah. So, next question. A proposal for a new library was included on an election ballot. A radio show stated that 3 times as many people voted in favor of the proposal as people who voted against it. A social media post reported that 15,000 more people voted in favor than voted against it. Based on these data, how many people voted against the proposal? Well, I mean, you can kind of set this up in your head intuitively, but we can also set up a system of equations here. We have 3, okay, so let's say like f is a number in favor, a is our placeholder for the number against. Then this becomes something like 3 times as many people, or the number of people who voted in favor is 3 times the number of people who voted against. And then the number of people who voted in favor is the number of people who voted against plus 15,000. Right, 15,000 more and 3 times. So we've captured both of those here. Then if we want to solve for how many people voted against, we're going to substitute. Right, we can substitute the top equation into the bottom one and get 3a is equal to a plus 15,000. 2a is equal to 15,000. And then divide by 2 to get a is equal to 7,500. Make sense? So that's going to be answer choice A. This next one is nice. Kind of like a weighted mean problem. Dataset A consists of the heights of 75 buildings and has a mean of 32 meters. Dataset B consists of the heights of 50 buildings and has a mean of 62 meters. Dataset C consists of the heights of the 125 buildings from datasets A and B. What is the mean in meters of dataset C? It's an interesting problem, right? Okay, so how we could approach this is kind of take a fraction of each mean. I guess I call it a weighted mean. So like if there's 75 buildings out of the total of 125 that have, and this data set has a mean of 32 meters, we can add that to the 50 buildings out of 125, and that data set has a mean of 62 meters. So in total, when we add that up, I actually need my calculator for this, or it would be helpful. But let's see. I think it's gonna be, oh, okay. Well, this simplifies down to 0.6 times 32. And then this simplifies down to 0.4 times 62, which is 24.8. So 19.2 plus 24.8 is going to be 44. That makes sense, right? If the mean of one data set was 32 and the mean of the other one was 62, the new mean has to be somewhere between those two. Nice. Okay, a few more math problems here, and then I've got some slots open for some questions. Let's do this one first. Have I ever looked the SAT? Let's take a look at this question. The equation above represents the speed y in feet per second of Shayla's bicycle, x seconds after she applied the brakes at the end of a ride. If the equation is graphed in the xy plane, which of the following is the best interpretation of the x-coordinate of the line's x-intercept in the context of the problem? Okay, physical interpretations. I think you guys should know what it means, the x-coordinate of the x-intercept. 18 minus 5x is going to look something like this. We're asked to find the meaning of the x-coordinate. What does the x-coordinate mean? Well, the x-coordinate has to do with x seconds, so it can't be a speed, it can't be the number of feet per second, and it can't be the number of feet. It has to be the number of seconds. That we just get that from the units. But yeah, if we solve that out, that would be the number of seconds it took from since she started applying the brakes until the bicycle came to a complete stop. I've taken the SAT. course. All right, what do we got next? Okay, in the given equation, a and b are positive constants. The sum of the solutions to the given equation is k times 4a plus b, where k is a constant. What is the value of k? Okay, some of the solutions, I mean, I could apply quadratic formula and then sum both of those solutions up. I also know that it's going to be, some of the solutions is going to be negative b over a, or is it just positive b over a? I think it's negative b over a. So let's try that out. We take the middle term, and negative b over a is going to be 16a plus 4b divided by 64 is equal to k times 4a plus b. Well, that's set up pretty nicely because we can factor this equation right here and get something that looks like this. 4 times 4a plus b over 64 is equal to k times 4a plus b. And then we can simplify this a little bit further. Well, okay, so at this point we kind of have our answer, because if we cancel out this with this, we're just left with 4 over 64 is equal to k. That's the same thing as k equal to 1/16, right? Or 0.0625. Nice. That's a good one. You guys feel free to submit any other questions, otherwise I'm going to pull from my little question bank. And let me know if you want to do reading or math. Oop. Oh my. So ones you submitted before. Okay, Oliver, send it in. How much geometry is on the SAT? A little bit. You're gonna have to know some basic geometry, but not like any crazy formulas or anything. Okay. Differentiate x cosine pi x over 2. Sure. Oliver, you got a... It's a really SAT style question. All right. Let me do these couple of questions. Part of the question from before. Yeah, I can't answer that question if I don't have the question from before. Or is it this? Oh my. It's kind of blurry. There we go. Okay. So this is not going to be on SAT, but we can do it for fun. Because, you know, we do all sorts of math here. Let's do this one real quick first, because it is actually like SAT style. Right, 3 times 2x minus 3 is equal to 33. What's the value of x? Divide everything by 3. 2x minus 3 is equal to 11. You know, plus 3 on both sides. 2x is equal to 14. Divide by 2. to get x is equal to 7. Nice SAT style question. Now for your calculus questions, we have x sine of pi x over 2. The values of the turning points on the graph of the function f satisfy the equation x plus nu tan pi x over 2. Find the value of nu. Okay. The x values of the turning points on the graph. Can you clarify what the turning points mean? I think I've heard something similar. Maybe like, but some of the terminology is a little bit different. Oh, I cannot read this one, Oliver. I'm sorry. Okay. Stationary point. If the turning point is inflection point? Or where the first derivative changes? In that case, local min or local max or inflection. Okay. Then I guess we'll have to take the derivative. So derivative of the function f prime is going to be, we'll use product rule. So it'll be derivative of that first function is just 1, then plus the second function, pi x over 2, plus the derivative of the second function times the first function. So x times derivative of sine is cosine of pi x over 2, and then we have to multiply by a derivative of what's inside, so pi over 2. All right. So first, okay, so we have the first derivative. And I guess if the equation looks like this, right, and we want the first derivative to equal to 0, I guess what we could do is just simplify everything by dividing by sine of pi x over 2. Or cosine. Divide by cosine of pi x over 2, because then that could cancel out for us. If we divide this by cosine of pi x over 2, that becomes tangent. So the function basically becomes tangent of pi x over 2 plus x times pi over 2 is equal to 0. And if we multiply everything by 2 over pi to get it in that same form, then it'll be 2 over pi times tangent of pi x over 2 plus x is equal to 0. Or we just rewrite it to get x plus 2 over pi tangent of pi x over 2 equals 0. So I think the value of nu should be equal to 2 over pi. Equation of the tangent of the graph of f at the point where x equals a, and yeah, not a is contained within the set of real numbers and is not equal to 0. Give your answer in the form y equals mx plus c. Okay. Well, the equation of the tangent is going to be y equals mx plus c, and of course, if x is equal to a, then this is the same thing as taking the slope is just going to be the derivative at a times x, and then the c value, well, that's a constant, right? We can solve for c. We solve for that on the side. C is just equal to the function evaluated at 0, and the function was x sine pi x over 2, so that's going to be equal to 0. So really it's just going to simplify it to this. And that's the same thing as, well, the derivative is going to be, we just found it, right? This part right up here. So derivative is going to be sine of pi x over 2 plus x cosine, let's do it like this, x pi over 2 cosine pi x over 2 times x. And since this is at x equals a, we just need to substitute in some a values. So we're going to get y equals sine of pi a over 2 plus pi a over 2 cosine pi a over 2 x. That should be the answer. Find the values of a if this tangent passes through the origin. Okay, if the tangent passes through the origin. Interesting. I never had to do a problem like that. If the tangent passes through the origin, then it's going to mean x and y are both equal to 0, right? But in that case, it becomes pretty trivial, right? Because if we substitute in 0, 0, then the whole equation is trivially true. I guess another solution is this whole part, the bracketed part, equals to 0. So like sine of pi a over 2 plus pi a over 2 cosine pi a over 2 equals 0. Which I'm not sure if that's going to be correct, actually. Find the values of a if this tangent passes through the origin. No, I'm going to have to skip that one and come back. Differentiate x cos pi x over 2 is again pretty simple with the product rule. It's going to be cosine of pi x over 2 plus or minus x sine pi x over 2 times pi over 2. Okay. It says to find the values of a as in a general solution. A equals m plus n times pi. Okay. If this tangent passes through the origin, I mean, I'm thinking we could use point slope form. If the tangent passes through the origin. It's tough. Now, maybe you can give me some tips, because that one's kind of got me stumped. I know, that if the tangent passes through the origin, then of course the equation of the tangent line will have y and x are, the y value would be equal to 0. The equation of the line would also pass through x equals 0. Rearrange the slopes in terms of a, like inverse trig. Maybe. I'm still not sure. I'll give it another minute. Yeah, the only thing I really see is like plugging in some numbers here. Like if we plug in a equals 0, for example. Well, the previous problem, it told us that a could not be 0. Like if a equals 1, we'd get sine of pi over 2 plus pi over 2 cosine pi over 2. Maybe we just want to solve for the values where this is equal to 0. Because I see sine of pi over 2 is going to be, what, 1? Pi over 2 cosine. But no, the first derivative equal to 0 is just going to give us okay. So I might have forgot the slope here. I mean, sorry, the intercept. Because the intercept could change for different lines. Right, so I actually should include the function. Let me think. If I use point slope, y minus y naught is equal to mx minus x naught, then what it's saying is that the point is at x equals a, then it's going to be y minus f of a is equal to mx minus a plus, okay, so y equals mx minus ma plus f of a. This might be more correct. So slope is definitely still going to be f prime. F prime at a times x. We're going to subtract off f prime of a times a. And we're going to add the function at a. Let's check if this would be correct. Let's oh my god. Graph it out and check. Because our function was x sine pi x over 2. So like what if y was equal to, so if this is f of x is equal to this, what if y was equal to f prime at a times x minus f prime at a times a plus f of a? So that looks like the correct formula, right? If I change the value of a, then my tangent line actually tracks the curve. So the real formula should be something like this. Not what I had originally. That's why we couldn't get the right answer. So really you should plug this in. You should plug in like your f primes and your f of a, which is really going to be like all this stuff. I'll go ahead and plug that in. So like f prime is going to be, oh man, sine of pi x over 2 plus x pi over 2 cosine pi x over 2 times x minus the same thing times a, and then plus a sine pi a over 2. So this, let me highlight this as the correct equation for the tangent line. That's what's going to happen. But I think we're running a little bit low on time, so I want to skip to a different question, which someone's asking about example of geometry question on the SAT. So I have this question bank kind of set up So let me scroll through if I can find a geometry question. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Something like this. Okay, maybe we'll save these competition problems for next time. Because those look tough. But I will show you guys an actual question from the SAT. And that's this equation. This equation is a circle, and we're asked to find the length of the circle's radius. So we just have to complete the square by grouping the x and y terms together and the constants. To complete the square, we take whatever coefficient we have on the x term, divide it by 2, and square it. So like here, that would become, if the coefficient on x is 1, that becomes 1/2, and 1/2 squared, which is 1/4. On the y, it's the same thing, right? Plus 1/4. Because the coefficient on the y is 1. Then on the constants, we also have to add a plus 1/4 and plus 1/4, because we want to keep the equation balanced, right? If I add 1/4 here and here, I have to add it here and here. Ultimately, what that lets me do is combine this as x plus 1/2 squared, y plus 1/2 squared, and then 199/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 is going to be 199/2 plus 1/2, which is 200/2, which is 100. Now the general form of a circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, and r squared is the radius. So if we're trying to solve for the radius, we just need to take this equation, which gives us that r is equal to 10. Yeah, so I've got to head off, but thank you guys for the questions. Those challenge problems look tough, so I'm going to throw those into the next session when we have some more time to actually go through them. But yeah, thank you guys all for joining today. Oh, and don't forget, check out my Explore page if you want any more resources or want to see my TikToks or my newsletter.